Story 1. I miss when websites and entire communities were for the community and not for money or clout. If you're anywhere between 20 to 40 years old right now, you've probably experienced a good chunk of the old internet, which I would place around the 1990s to 2005 or 2010. Story 2. When everything was more fragmented, you wanted to talk to friends, you would use MSN or a local equivalent. If you wanted to post pictures, you would use MySpace or Facebook. Wanted to learn how to jailbreak the first iPhone, repair your car, or cook salmon properly. Everything had its own forum group, which, in the majority of cases, had a great search engine. You wanted to post anonymously? Have a blog. There was space for everything. Now, it's all mixed into one or two messy platforms where nobody can find anything. Story 3. The beginning of the end was sometime in 2011 when corporations and other social media applications started to flood the market and get popular, as well as corporations using social media to advertise. Story 4. Old individual who started on the internet too young here. I had my first internet experience at age 11 in 1992. This was a little thing called Usenet. The web was but a glimmer in the eye of some nerds, but Usenet was available on every good bulletin board system. 1992 was not the golden age of the internet, but it was a different internet then. Everyone on it was a giant nerd of some kind. Almost all the content was text and a few images. Internet multiplayer games kind of existed, but they were things like mods for NetHack. It was good. I specifically remember as a preteen alt.tasteless was like the best Usenet group tree. In 1994, I had direct dial-up access to the internet. Netscape Navigator had just come out. Usenet was whining about eternal September thanks to America Online. I downloaded an internet relay chat client. Still mostly nerds, but now nerds, young people, and some companies. It was neat. Around 1996, the peak of internet comedy was Yoda Ate My Balls. Ogreish was serving gore to classrooms across the country. Everyone on the internet had a GeoCities page or something. A few bigger companies were around making waves. Search still sucked. In 1998, we began nearing the peak. eBay was a thing and it was awesome. LiveJournal was where all the emo teens hung out. America Online Instant Messenger was its own client that you didn't need to start America Online for, and it was free. Internet games were a thing, and almost all of them were fun. At some point, Google entered beta, and holy moly, it was so much better than Yahoo, Hotbot, Webcrawler, Lycos, AltaVista, etc. In my mind, 2001 was when we hit peak internet. You could still buy cool domain names. Everything had their own website. GeoCities was still alive and kicking. LiveJournal was awesome. Something awful existed. Most of the internet was text and images. Video content hadn't really taken off because the bandwidth wasn't there. Google searches almost always returned exactly what you were looking for. The ads were all stupid and non-targeted. Homestar Runner was a thing, and Flash cartoons were all over the place. Hacking stuff was easy, fun, and seldom resulted in data breaches costing billions of dollars. And instead we're like, I'm changing your desktop background to horse imagery of an explicit nature. It was still Wild Westy enough you could find yourself in dark corners of the internet by accident, but you could also look up phone numbers and buy movie tickets. Good deals could still be had on eBay. Most importantly, 2001 was before most people had mobile internet. So the internet was a thing you did at home in front of your computer, and when you got up it completely ceased mattering in your life. You could live without it. If you needed directions from MapQuest, you printed them out and took them with you. I would say this golden age lasted until sometime in 2005. That's when YouTube started to exist. That's when video streaming services started to exist. That's when mobile phones with things like MSN Messenger started to exist. That's when MySpace started being replaced by Facebook. That's when the internet stopped being this thing weirdos do in their basement and started being a thing that you kind of needed to live daily life. When not having a Facebook started seeming weird, whereas in 2001, not having an email was considered pretty normal. When niche internet memes started hitting the mainstream, it was all over. I wouldn't say the internet has sucked since 2005, but that to me is the last year that it was still truly good. Story 5. It's hard to explain to someone who wasn't there. Life on the internet was a new adventure every day. It was actually exciting, especially in the dial-up days. Once you dialed in, you were online. It was like embarking on a wild digital adventure each time. And then, when you were done, you logged off. No more internet, no more notifications, no emails or text messages in your pocket. You were offline. Those were the days. Story 6. The 2000s for sure. This was back when it wasn't mainstream, and sites weren't designed to cater to a mass audience, so you got unique cultures arising that didn't cross over into everyday life. I remember discovering 4chan back in 2004, and it was something me and my nerdy mates at school could share to ourselves. If that makes sense? Anyone remember the game? And then you had Newgrounds and Fat Pie and all that. When YouTube first started, it was just people making videos, not people trying to tweak algorithms to make money, no bots everywhere. You could spend all night browsing independent websites with spinning GIFs and cool stories about Satanism and aliens. This was back before conspiracy theories were subsumed by American politics. I miss it so bad. Rest in peace, my Neopets. Story 7. I could be biased because I'm a millennial, but to me, peak internet was when it was accessible but not always in our pocket. Like the old days when you had to go on a PC to check your Facebook or MySpace. People seemed a lot happier back then. Story 8. Late 90s to early 2000s. It was the Wild West. Not centralized, corporations hadn't slithered their tentacles into it yet, and no social media. And you could find a page on just about anything. The internet was actively against censorship of any kind. Nowadays, it seems like people clamor for suppressing uncomfortable speech on here. Story 9. Surely, the 2000s internet before Facebook and Google took over everything, it was more unfiltered and less regulated, and social media felt more like you had your own personal website. Story 10. Year 1, I had Facebook, probably around 2006 or 2007. I remember connecting with old friends I hadn't heard from in years. Just honest, heartfelt, organic conversations. Now, people would think you're a stalker or something. Story 11. Late 90s, early 2000s. The late 90s was when that speech Jim Carrey makes at the end of Cable Guy was literally coming true. There will never be a thrill like jumping online with a 56K modem and playing with a bunch of South Koreans. You didn't know they were South Korean because you were 12 and there was no Unicode yet, just crazy ASCII letters. Thank you, South Korea, you made me the first-person shooter expert I am today. Story 12. I believe before 2003, newer platforms such as YouTube were nice. However, once they became mainstream, they became heavily monetized, and the quality declined significantly. Story 13. Probably between 1995 and 2006. I've been on the internet since 1997. The nice thing back then was that the internet really was about just exchanging information and reaching new people. The government and corporations really began sinking their claws into the web around 2008, trying to outlaw certain websites and monitor them. Social media was beginning to rise then too, which is like one of the worst parts of the internet now. In 2006, YouTube was super fun with crazy videos being shared and music videos being made by people. Story 14. Here is the revised text with spelling errors corrected, acronyms spelled out, punctuation errors fixed, special characters, and links removed to best suit Azure text-to-speak AI. Honestly, from 2002 to 2012, the rise of Flash animation, Newgrounds, albino black sheep, and addicting games. The evolution of browser games from Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. Early YouTube before advertisements. For a while, Facebook was only for students. Sure, it was a trickle-down effect from colleges to high school, but it was something exciting. Story 15. From 2005 to 2014, everything got better every year. You gained new access to vast amounts of information that enhanced your life. The money was good, and the competition wasn't as cutthroat and insane as it is today. Around 2010, the technology started becoming a bit more frivolous and less impactful. Eventually, the accountants and corporate raider types took over, and you can see where we are now. Story 16. Pre-incorporated, early meme culture time, 1995 to 2005. Back in these days, we did not need pirate websites, racism was treated as ridiculous or ironic, camgirls already existed, video websites were not dominated by performance artists, and massive review bombing hate trains did not exist across all media yet. Story 17. Mid-2000s to early 2010s. mainly due to all the free Flash games and all the content on YouTube was purely passion-driven. Additionally, search engines would actually help you find things instead of smothering you with ads only tangentially related to your search. Story 18, early to mid-2000s. After the primitive 90s, but before social media and big commerce ruined everything. I have been around since the internet began, and I can say with confidence that this was the best time. Story 19, I think before smartphones, back when you needed some computer or tech literacy to access the internet. Back when search engines produced meaningful results, before bloggers became influencers. Story 20, late 90s and early 2000s for sure. Web ranks and the most random things you could find on GeoCities. And it was more difficult to get connected, so complete idiots were less prevalent. I love a lot of the features of the modern internet, but if I see another shill for a Patreon page for your unboxing video sponsored by NordVPN, I might snap. Story 21. Right before the big social media boom, MySpace was alright. I remember adding my friends and editing my profile to play wacky music when people looked at it. I was much younger, so maybe the horrors of today existed and I just didn't notice. Story 22. The golden age of the internet was pre-greed. When websites had a few ads, usually at the top and bottom, to cover costs and generate some money, searches would bring up actual legitimate results. Social media only showed you what your friends were up to and the pages you liked. Now, websites are more ads than substance. You can build an ad-riddled website that you pay to appear in search results. You can be a sponsored search result under a heap of pages that used knowledge of the search algorithm to increase their chances of appearing in the results to drive more traffic to their ad-riddled site. Social media algorithms focus on keeping people engaged by flooding them with negative content to keep them scrolling. Story 23. What an odd question. I certainly enjoyed the proto-internet in the early academic days post-defense Advanced Research Projects Agency but before Eternal September. But it was bare, isolated, elitist. The internet is constantly evolving. Improving? I mean, sure, there is now a lot of capitalism, but that is both good and bad. More money means more servers and users. More voices. There are more voices on the internet now than ever before. And sure, some of them are bots. And things have become so balkanized that it's hard to find the fresh voices over all the background noise. But it's all out there. I am overjoyed at the unprecedented availability of information, even if it might not be straightforward to find it all. And I am excited to see what comes next. We have a choice. All of these desperate interests trying to clamor for our attention and money are influenced by our choices. It's when we settle and give up and merely accept what is on offer that we become trapped in the echo chambers. Nothing has been lost. There is no point in the past we can't recapture or functionality we can't redeploy. Any age you envision as being better can be again. Story 24. The early to mid-2000s, anything from 2000 to 2010 really, the internet was a wild west. Flash games were a hot new thing and they were everywhere. What's your favorite cartoon or network? There's a sweet website for it, and you know it'll have some custom Flash games unique to it. This little website for sharing videos was pretty cool. It was fun watching other people's videos on this site called YouTube. Are you 16 and discovering your hormones and want some porn? Oh boy, do we have an upgrade for you. This isn't your older brother's Playboy magazines anymore. America Online and chat rooms were great. After school and everything was done for the day, everyone hopped on there to chat and talk. Then the cute girl or guy from class would instant message you and you would be up until way past your bedtime talking with them. Gaming in general was beginning to get more traction online. PlayStation 2, Xbox Live, and computer games would see a lot of their own golden age. World of Warcraft came out in 2004. Hopping online with your friends to clear a dungeon and getting lost in pure exploration for hours was fantastic. Computer arcades were more popular and seeing life in them, at least in the US. These were also fun places to hang out if you were the nerdy or geeky type. Almost forgot about Zanga and MySpace. Back when social media was more than just bot accounts posting idiotic AI-generated nonsense about politics. Story 25. Probably the late 90s to early 2000s when it wasn't overly commercialized yet. You had internet relay chat sites for gay bears, nerds, And no social media beyond ICQ, and AIM, AOL Instant Messenger. Story 26. Early 2000s to early 2010s, ads were less obtrusive, easier to get away from. Links to social media were a thing, but nowhere near as common as they are today. There was a lot of easy access to pirated content. Remember LimeWire? Websites were more unique and less sterilized in a corporate fashion. Content creators were in a phase of exploration where they let their ideas out for the world to see and continued doing so because they liked it, as did the audience, as opposed to the cash grab that it clearly is nowadays. I am a capitalist, but I recognize there was a loss of identity. By the end, there was a sweet spot with the quality of content becoming better and internet speeds improving tremendously. Also, Flash games evolved a great deal right before being cast aside to slowly die years later. Story 27. During the early to mid-2000s, it was an era of real discovery, with little to no advertising, low penetration of social media, and most importantly, content was not pushed into your face through algorithms.